What decisions did I take today? How did they impact my life and the lives of those around me? What could I have done better? And out of the abundance of what God has done in your life or what your spouse has done in your life, you do to others, you do to your business. If you get to a point where you need a break, where you need an urgent, pull away from social media, it means the
Mm.
way that you are handling things is not healthy. You're not strategically and intentionally putting enough rest moments in your day. Most of us, we live in a world that asks but doesn't care.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Today, oh man, it's quite sad. Today is our final interview. Um, Last conversation. I'm super excited about today's conversation. So we're going to be talking to Coach T, and he'll tell you exactly, more about him. In order to introduce it. And I'm so excited that we're actually closing off Suicide Prevention Month with a man. And I'll always say, oh, I am going to repeat that the statistics are, quite high for men and women. So just to actually be able and awareness that you're trying to build with a man being interviewed is like A1. I'm excited about that. Yay!
Yes, I'm ready.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. And how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're great. Thank you so much for coming through today.
Listen, it's only a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our
Awesome.
engagement.
Yes. No, I'm also really looking forward to it. I was just saying actually that I'm so excited that because you're my last conversation that I'm going to be having for this month, and I'm
Wow.
really happy that it's a man that's going to be closing off the whole conversation. And I was saying that because the statistics in the country really for men when it comes to suicide are far above women, it's so much nicer to be able to engage with men around the conversation, which means that another man will want to actually listen because it's not just a woman rambling on her own. He'll want to
Yeah.
listen and then he'll hear something and it actually really could be of great impact to him. So I'm really, really, really grateful that you showed up for me today.
No, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
I know, great. Coach T,
Yes.
tell me, did you know about suicide prevention until Suicide Prevention Month until I came at you with it?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't even know there was a month dedicated to suicide prevention until you actually reached out. And I was fascinated to find out more about it. So thank you for reaching out. Not just on the fact that it brought awareness, but I think it really is something that we should engage more about. And really just open up the lines of communication, especially with men, because a lot of the times, as men, we don't speak. We try and silence, So thank you for creating the awareness around this month. And I really hope that people are going back to the conversations we've had to really open up the dialogue, especially when it comes to mental health around men.
Mm. Okay, no, great. And then, okay, diving right into it, I would like to know for everybody what Coach T really does. What do you do?
Uh,
What's your day to day?
so for me, I've got uh, I wear a cloak of many colors. It's privilege to do so. So I've got my 9 to 5 where I am a quality assurance practitioner, but also I am a life coach as well. So my 5 to 9, that's where I do a lot of my life coaching. I do one-on-one life coaching, I do group coaching, and then I also do impact speaking as well. And I've got other entrepreneurial ventures that I do. But yeah, those are the three main things that I do. I've got my 9 to 5, but I'm very passionate about human development. And that's why I do my life coaching work. And, financial freedom is something that's very important to me. So I have other entrepreneurial, ventures that I actually am involved in as well that take up a lot of my time.
Okay, okay, great. I've actually found that with entrepreneurship minded people, if you start with one, you don't stop. There's always a whole line of things that you're doing. Can never really
Listen,
say this is all
you
that I'm
learn how
doing.
to become an opportunist. Like when you see
Yeah,
an opportunity, like you're in there,
you're
you
gone
want to
with
maximize.
this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, definitely. Now, Coach T, please tell us, in terms of, okay, so with this whole conversation, what we're trying to do is to take up everyone's ways of doing things, right? So that we can see how we can implement it in our own lives. Because at the end
Yeah,
of the day, we are doing suicide prevention and not just suicide awareness, because we are aware we do have a problem. We've seen it many times, but in terms of trying to find ways for us to prevent it while we can and while we're still healthy and able to listen to interviews like this, we just want to
yeah.
try grasp what everybody else is doing so we can implement in our spaces. So
Mm,
your routine, and specifically a routine that you realize is really helpful or has been helpful to your mental health, what
yeah.
what does it look like on a weekly or a monthly, or what does it look like?
All right. So with me, what influenced my current way of approaching things was two things. A few years ago, I was actually diagnosed with clinical depression. And what that led me to realize is that the way I was managing all my roles and responsibilities in life was not in a sustainable manner. I was allowing the world to withdraw from me more than I had actually deposited in me. And that led to me realizing that, what, I need to look at equilibrium. Now, I live in a world where a lot of things are taxing. I mean, when I go to work, they expect the best version of me. When I
Yeah.
knock off and I'm in my coaching sessions, they expect the best version of me. I'm, one of the breadwinners at home, taking care of my mother, my siblings, and things like that. So I realized that I have to work a life where I pour more into myself than I allow other people to take away from me. So quiet time for me in the mornings and in the evenings is something that's very important, where I invest in myself. I always say to my coaching clients, never give to the world what you haven't given to yourself, right? So if you're
Oh,
going to give the world time, you need to have given that time to yourself first. If you're going to
right,
give the world the energy, you have to give that energy to yourself first. If you're going to give
right.
the world money, resources that are coming out of you, you need to first pour those things into yourself. So I try by all means to get as much quiet time with myself as possible, whether that's through reading the word, whether that's through praise and worship, because each day requires a different dose. So it's never, what can I say, rigid, if I could say so. There's days where I wake up and there's like 30 minutes where I'm just pumping praise and worship, and that's me just, feeding my spirit, feeding into myself. There's days where I'm reading. I am a fan of audiobooks, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and those are moments where I feed into myself because I know the moment I open my door in the morning, I'm hit with demands, whether it's from work, whether it's from
Mm-hmm.
family, whether it's from relationships with inputs or clients. So I need to make sure before I leave the bedroom that I've poured into myself, and that requires waking up early in the morning and being intentional about those spaces. I do a lot of personal development growth with myself as well. That's where I do a lot of courses that help me deal with myself. I listen to clinical psychologists like Jordan Peterson and things like that. And all of those are tools that I use to feed into myself, right? And then I go about my day. But in the evening, it's important to detox as well, right? Which a
Okay.
lot of us don't do. Because think
Yeah.
about it this way. Let's say, for instance, you as an individual are a white rag, right? You're a white cloth. And every morning you start off as a white cloth, clean, washed, and everything. As you go about your day, you're dragging that cloth through life. And a lot of things are being attached to the cloth. Whether it's conversations that you have with people, energies that you pick up from people, trials, tribulations that you face, challenges that you face. So by the end of the day, that white cloth is not white anymore. Even if you did nothing wrong, just by existing in this world that is full of
Mm-hmm.
demands, that white cloth is not white anymore. So it's important that at the end of the day, you wash that cloth. And that's why detoxing from your day is important. Having a moment where you pause and you reflect on what decisions did I take today? How did they impact my life and the lives of those around me? What could I have done better? What conversations do I need to avoid going forward? What conversations do I need to, do more of? What did I do right to encourage myself and to affirm myself, right? So that the next day I can be able to be, in a better position. And what I found is that if you don't clean that cloth every single day, you start the next day with the dirty cloth. It's not white anymore. It carries the dirt of yesterday. And now you drag it through the day again. And by the end of the week, what started off as white is now black, right? And if you don't have moments where you interrupt the process and you reflect and you clean that cloth, that's where a lot of us get to a point where we feel like we're depressed, we feel suicidal, we feel like we're just carrying too much because we haven't taken the time to detox and to take off the things that we carry throughout the day. So for me, my morning routine and my evening routine are the fundamental two ways that really help me be in a position where I never give to the world more than I've given to myself. I think that's very important.
Lovely. That is so powerful. And I appreciate the example that you made because I think that's an analogy that in so many different places of our lives or different ways of our lives, we'll be able to, be able to use that example and understand it and place it somewhere.
Definitely.
So I really appreciate that. Tell me, do you think that because sometimes I think we do get a fulfillment from giving, right? From offering everything that like we have, the time that we have and the energy that we have and the hard work into our work and into our family and into all these demands that want us. We actually do create the spaces for us to be available for the demands, right? And it's more like we get some type of fulfillment from being able to provide and then being able to do the job right and being able to push the business right. We get some type of fulfillment. Would you know, or would you have a way of saying creating a balance between the excitement that comes from being able to give to the world all these pieces of you, versus coming back and being like, I also need to give myself the same thing, because we end up getting so excited, like when a business is coming together really right and you like really getting excited and you're starting to pour so much more into it than the time of you being alone, until the point where you're starting to crash and you're like, okay, now we have a problem.
Getting hectic,
But like just explaining having the balance and the importance of the balance. I don't know if you understand what my
I understand your question perfectly. And in fact, it's a principle that I teach. There's an illustration that I usually give to my coaching clients. And, please, allow me to give it to your audience today, right? So I've got a cup here, right? I don't know if you can see it. It's clear. Now, imagine this is your source. We all have different sources, whether it's God, wherever you get your energy of source or whatever you recognize as your source in life, right? And then imagine my hand being you, right? Now, this is what we usually see, where your source is pouring into you, right?
Right.
Now, imagine your source stays like this. He stays pouring. But what happens when you move from receiving to then pouring into other people? Right?
So
Whatever
you're not
is pouring, you're losing out of.
yes.
Right? And you keep pouring into other people, but what you don't realize is whatever was inside of you ends up going empty. And now you're no longer pouring from your soul, but you're pouring from yourself. And that's when it starts feeling tedious. That's where it starts feeling like the very things you used to love doing, you stop wanting to do. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
But what's meant to happen is that we're meant to give out of overflow, not out of what's in our cup, right? So this is the example that's supposed to happen. Your source stays in position and you stay in position until you are overflowing, and only give out of the overflow. And you stay in this place and only give out of the overflow. If you always give out of the overflow, you always have enough. and then everybody else around of you gets out of the overflow, and it never feels like it's too much. You understand?
Oh my
There's a
goodness.
difference between giving somebody 10 rand when you only have 10 rand and
Yeah.
giving somebody 10 rand when you have 10,000 rand in your account. You don't even notice it. It's out of overflow. It doesn't
Yes.
bother you. You have a cheerful heart even when you do it. But most of us, we thought our greatest assignment is to give other people, when our greatest assignment was to stay in a position of receiving until you are healthy, you are whole, you are complete and overflowing. And out of the abundance of what God has done in your life, or what your source has done in your life, you do to others, you do to your business. And if you stay in that place, it never feels like a task. It never feels like work. You're constantly in a place where your hands are up, you're receiving, and out of the abundance of the heart, you give. And that's the problem. Most of us, we're doing it out of our own strength, and that's never what it was meant to look like.
I hear you. Let me calm down. I wasn't ready for that. I hear you. I hear you clearly. I hear you so clearly, because we do miss that step. We mess it up. And I think we start to there's a pouring out from ourselves that after the overflow, you'll pour out, yes, and then you start to feel like I still have the strength to give out of everything. But you will feel the edge, or Mara, something is not in alignment. Mara,
Yes, yes.
still feel like I do. And then it gets to a point where we're hitting rock bottom. And coming back from that point is not easy. And we're trying to avoid getting ourselves to that clash.
And not many people know how to get back from that point. And that's
Not
why
many people
we have
know,
the
yeah.
high that we have.
Yeah.
Not many people have the support structures to help them bounce back, And that's
Right.
why prevention is about helping people not even get to that point. You understand? I was having a conversation with one of my coaches, and he was like to me, he was telling me about being thirsty, right? And he was saying, nutritionists say if you only drink water when you're thirsty, it means you waited too late, right? Your body is in crisis mode. That's why it's creating that feeling of thirst and dehydration. So he's like, you need to make sure you drink water in enough intervals throughout the day that you never feel thirsty, right? And that's what we need to realize about mental health. If you get to a point where you need a break, where you need an urgent, pull away from social media, it means the way that you are handling things is not healthy. You're not strategically and intentionally putting enough rest moments in your day, enough time away from certain spaces that are taking too much from you. So the way you're managing your life is imbalanced. And that's the thing. A lot of the time, before we even get to a point of crisis, life is always giving us these indicators that our management systems are insufficient for the weight that we carry. And a lot of times, life is not saying do less, but it's saying put more emphasis on how you manage what you already carry. And a lot of times when we get into crisis, we think it's time to take stuff off, get off social media, break away. But that only then leads to getting a bit of temporary energy and then coming back to the same toxic way of managing things. And sooner or later, now you need a breakaway again. But if you're strategic enough to know, in my day, this is how I structure my social media time. This is how I structure it. This is how I structure people that I know are critical that will pour into my life. You get to a space where a year runs and you never needed to get off social media. You never needed time off of people. Essentially put that into your schedule and you're living from a healthy place of overflow.
Right. Okay. That's really powerful, because we do believe or invest so much in that one time that I need to take a real long break from everything. And I actually went through something beginning of the year where through therapy basically realized that my struggle with my mental health at that point was because I didn't know how to rest. So I had this and that and this and that and this and that, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm crashing, I'm shutting everything down. I stopped everything. I moved away. I
canceled my business. I just shut down, and I was like, I can tell that I'm losing my mind, and I need the time off. And then in the time off, I'm going to therapy, and I'm realizing that I actually don't even know what to do with time off. So now my head is spinning, and I'm still as sick as I was when I was in that rat race. Right? So if we actually just found ways to implement having like a good balance in everything that we do all the time, every day, then having a time where you are taking months off from certain things is not going to be necessary, because the work that I do is creative and I love it. And I'm back at it because I always have. I've been doing it forever. But that time of not realizing that there needs to be a balance, it came to that point that you mentioned. Came to that point that you mentioned when you stop loving what you initially cared about. Okay, Coach T. So now I want to know, when it comes to us interacting with other people, what it is that you do for your environment, your community, in terms of how you handle your relationships in order to affect the next person in a positive way, right? Whether it's people you know or people that you don't know, but going back again to trying to implement somebody else's ways of doing things, we're trying to see how we can help the next person, or just add something into our lifestyle and a bit of our personality to simply know how to just do something right by the next person. Because when someone commits suicide, there's always that thing that we say that we saw the signs, we saw something. There's always a conversation the person made, I don't know, a post on social media that they made. They were weird towards their family. There's always something, right, that leads to that. And even just generally with us who would maybe get depressed or have gotten through the space of feeling suicidal, there are some things that you do at that time as a cry for help, or not really knowing exactly how to maneuver the situation, right? Just our community, what works for you, and that maybe could help us try to do for the next person too.
Yeah. So most of the times, especially when you read letters of people who have committed suicide, right, there's an element of feeling unheard that always exists, right? And now let me give you a simple example. A lot of the times when we meet somebody, we'll say, "Hi, how are you? Fine, thanks, and how are you?" And then everybody goes their separate ways, right? And in that moment, what I've done oftentimes, especially through varsity, is that I never allowed that moment to be a moment of walking away. But whenever I'd ask somebody, "How are you?" and they would say, "Fine, thanks," I would then return it with, "No, really, how are you?"
How are you?
And talk. And allow somebody a moment to actually express how they are, because we live in a world that is so busy. Everybody's so in a rush to go after their grind, go after their, and not a lot of people genuinely ask you that question because they genuinely want to hear and listen to how you actually are. And that's one thing that I've done ever since I was in high school. I used to be called Dr. Phil in high school because people always just come into their way to just come and talk to me about the issues and their problems. And I learned because of the void I had. I was often overlooked in a lot of situations because growing up, I was very short, very scrawny, easy to overlook in a room, had a lot of, self-identity issues, but my own cries helped me see that cry in other people. So one thing that I made a promise to myself is that if I have the opportunity to spend 15 minutes with someone, I will genuinely want to find out how they are and give them a moment where they felt heard. And that's what's been the driving force behind my coaching, business, behind, the work that I do in my community, is giving people an opportunity to really be heard. Because most of us, we live in a world that asks but doesn't care, and you'll be surprised how people will start breaking down and crying just because, wow, you actually want to know how I'm feeling. Wow, you actually care about my perspective and my point of view. Oh, okay, you want to hear my ideas. And that has been a simple but absolutely profound way that I've been able to impact the lives of the people that are around me. Because most of us, no matter whether we are 10 years old or 40 years old, we are hungry and crying out to be heard. Men are crying out
Mm,
to be heard, and oftentimes we feel that the feminine ear is deaf to our cry.
mm,
Oftentimes we feel like even if we want to talk, what if the things that I tell you as my woman or as the woman in my life, you're going to use against me, the next time that we have a fight, and that shuts me down. You understand?
mm-hmm,
And when you provide a space for a man to be able to feel like not only am I heard, but my perspective is acknowledged.
mm,
I might not always agree with what you say, but I'm going to make you feel that I acknowledge your perspective in that moment.
right,
And
right.
it's through the conversations that we can have with each other that we can start to shift each other's perspectives. And I find that if we can do that to the next person, we will find that we build a more healthier environment, a more healthier community, a community that actually talks. And I find a lot of the times the people who have the platforms are too busy trying to speak and answer questions without making people feel like, but let me listen to you. Let me hear you. I
Mm,
remember we once had a coaching client from Tunisia, and
mm.
in her interview, one of the things she said to me is that this was the first space I've been in that didn't ask me to be someone else in order to fit in. I was able to
Oh,
just be myself and be heard. And that allowed me to actually open up about the things that I'm actually going through. And that's what I try
okay.
to do every single time when I meet somebody. Make you understand that this is a safe space. How are you really? And this is
Mm.
a space where you will be heard and your perspective will be acknowledged. And you'll be amazed at how much change you can impact in people's lives just by giving them that moment to do that.
That's really powerful because it's really the simple things that are giving us problems and that are growing on our mental health in a really, really negative way. It's the simple things. Because the big things we have on lock, you know what I mean? Like we're carrying the work, we're carrying the parenting, we're carrying the whatever it is, we're doing it. But the small, finer detail of the stuff that really give us purpose, or the stuff that really matter, the stuff that really allow us to open up to be ourselves, those are the places where we're struggling to find ways to hold on to, or we're struggling to find people to connect with in that way. So I appreciate how you explained that. Coach, tell me, now you know that like since COVID started, we are on social media a whole lot more, which
Yeah.
in turn means that the people that we let into our space, we stopped really filtering, which is why now we need social media breaks and whatever, because we stopped really filtering because we were in a space that required escaping reality. And our
Yeah.
escape from reality is to watch the vlogs and to watch other people tell stories about Bandampile and income. Like, all of those things. We're just listening to stuff that are helping us get away from our own little, corners.
Yeah.
So it ended up in us just watching and inviting our people into space into our spaces that we don't really need, us attending events that we don't really places that we don't really need to go to because now we're just desperate to get out of the house, like
Yeah.
I would like to know how you maintain a power circle from the people to your social media to whatever it is, but how you maintain a power circle.
Yeah. So two key things that are important, right? Um, the first thing is to understand who you follow leads you, right?
Mm,
So a lot of us we're following different people that are leading us through different rabbit holes, right? So
okay.
you find you're scrolling, you're having a bad day, and if you're following the wrong people, the content that you're going to read or you're going to go through will either enhance the bad day that you're having or will give you a different perspective. And most of us, because we are following a lot of negative people or content that is, I call it, bumpla, where it's like there's no real, consistency or no real substance to it. then
Yeah.
it's not going to help you when you're having that bad day. But if you're following people on social media that have substance, people that are giving you perspective, because remember, when you are emotionally invested in your process, you are here, right? There's things you
Mm.
don't see. The last thing you need is people that are going to keep you stuck here or seeing this as being worse, right? You need people who are going to make you raise your head and see a different perspective. So you could be mentally having a bad day going down a rabbit hole, but if you look at the right post, it could make you lift your head and see something that you don't see. So I want to make sure that the people that I'm following on my social media are people that will help me have an opportunity to look up when days are dark, or to look up when even days are good and see how greater my day can be, right? So I'm very intentional about that, which is something I think a lot of people need to realize. Who you follow leads you, right? And secondly, understand that environments go beyond physical geographic location. What do I mean? Even with us engaging right now, we're creating an environment, right? The energy that we carry, it creates an environment. Now, I don't know if you've ever had this, but have you ever woken up excited, ready for the day, and then you had a conversation with the wrong person, and then
Yeah.
you left just feeling drained, and you're just like, oh Lord, can this day come to an end, right? That helped me understand that people carry energy that impacts us. And I started realizing that that energy goes beyond geographic location. So I became very intentional about what books am I reading, because that person's energy remains in their book. What audios am I listening to, because the spirit that that person was carrying when they created that audio, when they created that video, it remains in them. Do you understand what I mean? So when I'm listening to a podcast, there's transaction in terms of knowledge, but there's an energy transfer that is taking place. You understand? That's why they'll say to you that your network determines your net worth, because the energy that flows around your network is going to flow around every other area, whether it's your finances, whether it's the kind of relationships you have, whether it's the kind of opportunities you have access to. You understand? So when I realized the power of this energy, I realized, oh, so I don't need to meet Les Brown to be impacted by his energy. I can do that by reading his books, listening to his videos, listening to his audios. I don't need to be introduced to Eric Thomas to be able to tap into the vibration that he's vibrating on in terms of life coaching, in terms of impact speaking. So those are the kind of people that I follow, and I consume their content on a high level, because it's as if I'm with them in that moment, because their energy is right there, right? The greatest compliment that I once got is when somebody said to me, hey man, you sound, very familiar to the likes of TD Jakes and things like that with the things you're saying. And that was a compliment, because growing up, that's all I listened to. Like, I would listen to his sermons all the time, and it meant his vibration, his content was starting to now reflect out of me. And that started teaching me that I don't need to meet these people to tap into their power. I don't need to meet them to tap into their vibration. So I can build my circle of network without ever even being introduced to these people. And I think some of us, we think we first have to meet Visit Maguire or meet the heroes that we have before we can be impacted by their energy and their vibrations. And it's not like that. You can literally sit and create your own power circle and say, okay, in the area of my finances, these are the 5 guys or ladies that I need to listen to and consume. And this is going to be my friendship circle in that space. And because you're always listening to their information, their knowledge, and walking and, living in that energy, I'm telling you, you're going to start seeing some amazing things. So that intentionality of knowing, follow the right people, and secondly, understand you can be intentional about creating the power circles around you. And it all goes back down to being intentional. Life doesn't happen to you by surprise. You need to be ahead of the game and be intentional about the kind of life that you build around yourself. So I listen to people like Eric Thomas, like I said, the Les Browns. I listen to the Jordan Petersons. I consume so much of their content. And then even in my circle of friends, the kind of engagement that we speak about. You know, I have a slot every Monday on radio, and the past few weeks I was giving out principles that me and my best friends actually built our lives on in high school. That we were like, look, our fathers aren't present in our lives, but we're going to be intentional about building principles that are going to guarantee that we become the kind of men we actually wished our fathers were, right? So even in our friendship circles, the kind of intentionality that has gone into the kind of people that we are has really, really gone above and beyond ensuring that we get the best out of life. So you have to be intentional about building those circles.
Okay, love it. You know what? We spoke about this yesterday about how this 30 minutes thing is
Right?
because I want to dive in so much. But lastly, to cover this, Coach T, and please take into account that you're my last person for. I cannot express how grateful I am for the fact that you were closing it, and you were closing it in this type of way, because I just know there's a whole lot of impact that's going to happen. I'm seeing already in the middle of our conversation, there's a lot of people that have started following me after this, and I'm just like, okay, so Coach T's impact is coming in this direction, and that already puts the type of good pressure to say that must be something right that we're having going on right now, and it may continue to grow in that way, right? Coach T, I'd like for you to help me understand or to grow in where I've started now, Katabaya suicide prevention, and tell me what would you think would help to make this even more impactful going forward. So I just did it in this way because firstly, like I mentioned, Tabaya social media, I'm trying to find other people or get other people to follow better people on social media. Like I told you, the guy that I interviewed yesterday, I found from your social media, right? I literally was looking for other men that make sense. And I was like, if Coach T follows you, you better be in the right direction. You know what I mean? So, and that's how I found him. And that's the type of community I'm trying to build as well, to say, okay, let's do this on social media as well, so that when people go on social media, they start to be like, oh, okay, the other people that Mbali is going to is this, and then the other people that Coach T goes to are these other people. Okay, fine. Now we're trying to build a better community. But like, just trying to build this thing going forward, what would you say you think would help for me, as anybody else that's listening, to grow Tabaya suicide prevention?
Yeah. Look, I think you're doing an absolutely amazing thing. I always say to my team that we don't despise humble beginnings. You know, if each of us built the wall that was in front of us, this world would be such a better place. So first and foremost, before I even advise, kudos to you for the work that you've done over this series. And I think, sharing it on more platforms, allowing us to share the lives as well, will just spread the message so much more. But my challenge to you would be, get this on radio. Get this conversation not just to be a month-long conversation, because that's the problem with a lot of awareness campaigns, right? They have a start and an end, but life doesn't. Right?
Yes.
So it's so important. So for instance, with me, I pick my problem and I spend every day solving that problem, because it's a lifelong problem. You understand? So pick your problem and don't give it a start and end. Don't give it a month. You understand? Let it be what you are known for. You understand? Because in January, somebody's going to need suicide prevention. In March, somebody's going to be needing suicide prevention. In December, somebody's going to be needing suicide prevention. And a lot of the times what we do is we get into spaces and we want to be, in business they call it, DCP. You're into baking, you're into mining, you're into delivery, you're into all of these things. And what that does is you're never known for anything. And therefore, nobody ever calls you when they're going through that particular thing. You understand? So my thing would be, don't be a CC, be a specialist, be a PTY Limited that deals with this topic. And whether it's on radio, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's your blog, whether it's on Instagram lives, whether it's your post, decide that this is the thing you are going to tackle and literally die for it. I've decided that when it comes to people understanding their purpose, their potential, and how to live it out, that's what I'm going to die for. That's what I'm spending every single day of my life doing. Whether it's a one-on-one person on the street, whether it's a coaching client, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's through a post. My greatest thing is, may you interact with what I'm doing and understand there's more to you and get a hunger of wanting to bring that out of you. You understand? And if I do that every single day, there's no way I leave this world the way I found it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So find your the thing and spend your whole life tackling that in every area of your life and watch what God will do. Watch what God will do.
We're ending it here, Coach T. If I take it any further, one of us is going to cry, and then we're good. I appreciate this so much.
Thank you. Thank you for
so
the
much,
opportunity.
so much. Yeah, no. It's been an amazing month. I've learned so much. I couldn't believe after every conversation I would have to go and pray and be like I just couldn't believe how much I was learning. And it's like, if people could just sit back and be okay with asking any random person a question, try to figure out how other people work around certain things. There's so much that we really could learn. There's the simple things that we might think are not that important, but only for somebody else to tell you and to explain it to you in such detail, like you were kids, like explain it to you so beautifully that you know now how to implement it in your life and it actually could make great impacts. I see such a great impact happening around the mental health space, and I'm completely grateful for the people that I was able to connect with currently just in this month. And I didn't expect some responses, especially from people that I wasn't really like, I don't know, I've never really met you. So I'm thinking, hey, is this DM gonna work? But I think it's by God's grace and it's by purpose that it had to happen, and it's happened the way it's happened at the moment. But yeah, we're going to close it here. Thank you very much. And I believe we'll continue to be in conversation. You know what you mentioned about, what you mentioned about men and the mental health space. I would love for us to have another, I don't know, a live, I don't know, something that, other people, to continue the conversation and see how much more we can do beyond where we are at this moment. But otherwise, thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you for having me, and shout out to you. Shout out to all the people that joined you on your live this month. Let's continue the conversation. Let's collaborate. Let's share platforms. Let's impact on each other's platforms. Because the work is bigger than us, guys. The work is bigger than us.
Yes.
Awesome. Have a great day.
I will. Thank you. You too.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let's cry. Let's cry together, guys. I can't believe it. Have a good day. Bye.